Love of the Grim Reaper's Soul #1, The Lantern That Stayed. The first thing the boy saw was the ceiling, white, cracked, a water stain shaped vaguely like a bird that never quite managed to fly. The second thing he saw was the absence of pain. That was how he knew something was wrong. Machines still hummed. The hospital room still smelled faintly of antiseptic and stale coffee. Rain traced trembling paths down the window beside his bed. His body lay there, small, pale, wrapped in wires in quiet effort. But he was standing. He looked down at his hands. They were whole, steady. The fear arrived slowly. He turned toward the door as it opened without sound. Night stepped in. Not darkness like a switch flipped. Not shadow like a curtain drawn. Night like velvet. Night like calm water beneath stars. Morwen entered softly, as though worried about waking someone. They appeared as they often did, tall, gentle, long black hair flowing without wind. Their robes shimmered faintly with constellations that had not yet been born. In their hand hung a silver lantern, its light dim but warm. They closed the door behind them. The room did not feel smaller. It felt quieter. The boy swallowed. "You're not a nurse," Morwen smiled. No looked at his body on the bed. His mother was asleep in the chair beside it, hand wrapped around his unmoving fingers. "Am I?" "Yes," Morwen said softly. The word was not sharp. It was not cruel. It simply was. The boy stared at his mother. "She'll be alone." "For a while," Morwen said. They stepped closer, bare feet silent on linoleum. "My name is Morwen." He looked up at them, studying their face, expecting bones perhaps, or rot, or something terrible. They only looked kind. "You don't have a scythe," he said. Morwen tilted their head slightly. "I've never found one necessary." He let out a small breath that might have been a laugh. "Is it going to hurt?" "No." "Is it dark?" Morwen lifted the lantern slightly. "That depends on what you need." The boy hesitated. "I'm not ready." Morwen nodded as though that answer was entirely expected. "Then we will not rush." They moved to sit on the edge of the hospital bed, not disturbing the body, but near enough that presence could be felt. Outside the window, the rain slowed. "Before you go," Morwen said, "you may have a dream." "A dream?" "Yes, one you choose." The lantern brightened faintly. The boy's eyes widened. "Anything?" "Anything your heart requires." He looked again at his mother, then past the hospital walls, past the city. "I want to see the ocean." Morwen smiled more fully now. "Very well." They reached out their free hand. He took it. The hospital dissolved. The world unfolded into salt air and endless horizon. The sky stretched gold and violet in evening light. Waves rolled gently across sand untouched by footprints. The boy stood barefoot at the shore. He gasped. "It's bigger than I thought." "Yes," Morwen said. They stood beside him, robes stirring in a breeze that did not exist in the hospital room they had left behind. He ran forward as a wave rushed over his feet. Laughter burst from him. Real, bright, unburdened. Morwen watched. They did not smile widely. They simply observed with quiet reverence. Mortals were radiant when free from fear. The boy turned back toward them. "Will she be okay?" Morwen walked to the waterline, the tide parting slightly around their ankles. "She will grieve," they said honestly. "But grief is love without a place to go." He frowned. "That sounds sad." "It is," Morwen agreed, "but it is also proof." "Proof of what?" "That you mattered." He considered that. The wind carried the scent of salt and something older. "Do you ever get tired?" he asked suddenly. Morwen paused. "Of walking people?" "Yes." They looked out across the horizon. "Sometimes," they admitted. The boy squinted at them. "You look lonely." The word hung in the air like a fragile thing. Morwen did not deny it. "I walk beside every soul," they said, "but I do not walk with them beyond the door." "That's not fair. Fairness is not the shape of the universe." He walked back toward them slowly. "Then who walks with you?" The waves quieted. The dream dimmed slightly at the edges. Morwen looked down at the lantern in their hand. "No one," they said. The boy frowned deeper. "That's stupid." Morwen blinked. "Pardon?" "You help everyone," he insisted. "Someone should help you." They felt something then. A subtle shift. Not in the universe. In themselves. It was small. Almost imperceptible. A warmth not borrowed from dying stars or fading souls. The dream began to thin. The ocean dissolving into mist. "It is time," Morwen said gently. He nodded, braver now. "Will I remember this?" He hesitated. Then he stepped forward and hugged them. Mortals rarely did that. Morwen froze, just for a fraction of a cosmic heartbeat, before gently placing a hand against his back. He was warm, bright, terribly brief. "Don't be lonely," he whispered. Then he stepped back. The vision folded into light. The hospital room returned. The boy's body exhaled one final time. Machines gave their flat, unbroken tone. His mother woke with a gasp. Morwen stood at the bedside as the boy's spirit shimmered fully free now, lighter than before. He looked at his mother once more. "I love you," he said, though she could not hear. Morwen extended their hand again. This time, he took it without hesitation. Behind them, the wall of the hospital room softened into something deeper. Not light, not dark, but threshold. "Are you ready?" Morwen asked. He nodded. Together, they stepped through. The door closed. Silence returned to the room of the living. But something unusual remained. Morwen stood alone on the other side of the veil, watching the path where the boy's spirit had gone. Usually, once a soul crossed, the feeling ended. Clean, complete. This time, it lingered. A faint echo. A memory not of grief, not of duty, but of being seen. Morwen looked down at their lantern. For the first time since the first star burned out, its light did not dim after a crossing. It glowed slightly brighter, not because of death, but because of love. Morwen closed their eyes. Across the infinite expanse of endings, they felt something unfamiliar and fragile begin to take root. Not attachment, not possession, but connection. And somewhere beyond all heavens and hells, in a place where even Morwen rarely looked, something stirred in response. The gentle veil had changed, just slightly. And the universe, vast and eternal, noticed. Love of the Grim Reaper's Soul, number 2, The Misdelivered Girl. The way she died. There are deaths that shake cities, there are deaths that alter bloodlines, and then there are the quiet ones, the kind that slip between statistics and morning news segments. Elena Marrow died on a Thursday. It was not dramatic. No fire, no scream, no final speech. Just rain, a slick crosswalk, a delivery van turning too fast, and a moment of misjudged distance. Her headphones were in. A song she loved was midway through its chorus. She had been texting her best friend about a math test she was sure she'd failed. She never heard the brakes. The driver would remember the impact for the rest of his life. Elena would remember the sky. She lay on the pavement, staring up at gray clouds splitting with light. The world dimmed gently, like someone lowering a curtain without wanting to disturb the stage. And somewhere far beyond traffic and sirens and the fragile architecture of lungs, a system older than galaxies registered a soul ready for escort. But systems, even cosmic ones, are not immune to error. Somewhere in the endless corridors where destinations are aligned, where thresholds sort themselves according to resonance and choice and consequence, a tremor passed through the ledger. A misprint, a smudge, a misinterpretation of weight. And instead of being routed toward a field of open sky and warm horizon, Elena Marrow was sent down. Elena. At first, she thought she was dreaming. It was dark, but not the comfortable dark of her bedroom. This was thick, heavy. The air felt like it had been breathed too many times already. She stood on cracked earth beneath a sky that did not move. No stars, no moon, just a low ceiling of red-black haze. Somewhere far off, something wailed. It wasn't a scream. It was a sound like regret given voice. Elena hugged her arms around herself. "Hello?" she called. Her voice did not echo. It was swallowed. Figures moved in the distance, silhouettes hunched, wandering. Some muttered to themselves. Some clawed at the ground. Some simply sat and stared at nothing. Her heart pounded. This wasn't real. This couldn't be real. "I was good," she whispered. Not perfect. She'd lied to her mom about homework once. She'd shoplifted a nail polish bottle at 13 and felt so guilty she couldn't sleep. She'd broken up with her girlfriend over text because she was afraid of confrontation. But she wasn't. She swallowed hard. The ground beneath her feet pulsed faintly. Shadows began to gather. They did not leap at her, they circled. Curious, testing, she backed away. "I don't belong here," she said louder now. A figure detached itself from the haze ahead. Tall, featureless. Its voice sounded like paper tearing. "Everyone says that." Her throat closed. "I think there's been a mistake." "There are no mistakes." The sky cracked faintly overhead, not with lightning, but with something like pressure. Elena felt something then. Not heat, not pain. A slow, creeping despair pressing at the edges of her thoughts. Memories twisted. The time she snapped at her brother. The look on her ex-girlfriend's face. Every insecurity magnified. You are selfish. You are small. You are not enough. The words weren't spoken. They were seated. She dropped to her knees, clutching her head. I don't belong here, she whispered again, weaker now. The shadows leaned closer. 3. Morwen. Morwen felt it immediately. They were guiding a poet across a quiet threshold when the veil rippled wrong. Not violently, not like invasion, like a note slightly off-key in an otherwise perfect chord. Morwen paused mid-step. The poet's spirit looked at them. What is it? Morwen's gaze drifted beyond the path ahead. Wait here, they said gently. Time folded. They stood now in the vast expanse between destinations, where threads of souls shimmered like constellations mapped in motion. They traced Elena's thread. It glowed soft gold, unmarred, untainted. It should have arced upward toward open fields and unfinished dreams. Instead, it plunged downward. Morwen's lantern dimmed briefly. No, they whispered. They moved. When Morwen entered the lower plane, darkness responded instantly. Not with hostility, with awareness. This was not their dominion, but they were recognized everywhere. The ground stilled beneath their bare feet. The red-black sky shuddered. Elena lay curled on cracked earth as shadows whispered around her. Morwen's robe unfurled behind them like a night sky poured into motion. Enough, they said softly. The word was not loud. It did not need to be. Shadows recoiled as if touched by frost. The tall, faceless figure turned toward Morwen. This one is processed, it rasped. She resonates with regret. All mortals do, Morwen replied calmly. They stepped forward, lantern lifting. Its light did not burn. It revealed. The cracked earth beneath Elena shimmered, replaced momentarily with scenes from her life. Laughing with her brother in the kitchen. Holding her girlfriend's hand at a bus stop. Crying alone and still choosing to apologize the next day. Regret, yes, but also growth. The shadows hissed softly. She is imperfect, knelt beside Elena. Yes, they agreed. They touched her shoulder gently. Elena looked up through tear-blurred eyes. For a moment, confusion overtook fear. You're not from here. No, Morwen said. Their voice was cool night air. You are misplaced. Elena's breath hitched. I knew it. Morwen almost smiled. They turned toward the towering figure. The ledger trembled, they said. Release her. The entity's form flickered. There are protocols. There is compassion, Morwen replied. The sky above split faintly, not violently, but like fabric pulled apart by steady hands. Light filtered down, not blinding, inviting. Elena stared upward. I don't want to stay here, she whispered. You were never meant to, Morwen said. They extended their hand. The shadows hesitated, then parted. The faceless figure bowed its head slightly. Even here, Morwen's authority was not questioned. Elena took their hand. The moment she did, the despair uncoiled from her chest like smoke drawn into Morwen's lantern. The lower plane dimmed. They rose. Not flying, not falling, simply transitioning. As they crossed back through the veil, Elena looked up at Morwen. Was it close? Morwen considered. Yes, she swallowed. Am I bad? Morwen stopped walking. They crouched so their endless eyes were level with hers. You are human, they said gently. And human is not a synonym for condemned. Tears welled again, but lighter now. The correct horizon unfolded ahead, open fields beneath dawn light, warm wind, distant laughter. Elena stepped forward slowly. Before she crossed fully, she turned back. Thank you. Morwen inclined their head. Be at peace. She walked on, the threshold sealed behind her. Silence returned. Morwen stood alone in the in-between once more. They looked down at their lantern. Its glow had changed again. Deeper now, steadier. Not just from guiding, from intervening. Compassion had weight, and today Morwen had lifted it. Far below in the lower plane, systems adjusted, ledgers corrected, protocols rewritten with a subtle new clause. All souls subject to review by the gentle veil. Morwen turned back toward the endless procession of spirits waiting for guidance. There would always be more, but tonight, the darkness felt less absolute. And somewhere in the architecture of eternity, an error had become mercy. Love of the Grim Reaper Soul number 3, When Night Meets Dawn. There are places that do not belong to the living. There are places that do not belong to the dead. And then there is the garden between. It rests where first breaths gather before they are given, where last sighs pass before they dissolve. It is not heaven. It is not earth. It is not any afterlife that mortals would recognize. It is a pause, A meadow suspended in cosmic twilight, where grass grows in constellations and rivers run with liquid sunrise. Stars bloom low like lantern flowers. The air hums with possibility. Morwen stands at its edge, their robe drifting like a slow eclipse over silvered fields. They do not visit often. They do not need to. But tonight, the veil feels thinner. Their lantern glows softer than usual, warm with recent mercies, and they feel him. Life always arrives loudly. The meadow brightens at its far end. Grass straightens. The river laughs louder. Buds burst open without waiting for season. He steps from the horizon like morning deciding to exist. Life does not have a fixed form, but tonight he appears as he once did long ago. Tall, golden-skinned, dark hair falling loose over his shoulders, eyes bright green like forests after rain. His clothes are simple linen and earth tones, sleeves rolled carelessly as if he has just come from planting something. He smiles the moment he sees Morwen. "You've been busy?" he says, voice warm as sunlight through glass. Morwen inclines their head slightly. "I always am." He walks toward them, and flowers bloom beneath his bare feet. "Still patient?" he asks. "Yes." "Still kind?" "I try." He studies them more closely now. There is no fear in his gaze. There never has been. "You feel heavier," Life observes gently. Morwen looks down at their lantern. "There was an error," they say. "A girl misplaced. I corrected it." Life's expression softens. "You always do." They stand in silence for a moment. Not awkward, not strained, simply shared. There was a time, long before stars learned their names, when life and death walked inseparably. When existence was new and fragile, when the universe did not yet understand rhythm. They had learned it together. Growth and ending, inhale and exhale. They had been closer then, closer than language would allow. "Do you remember," Life says lightly, stepping beside them, "when you used to laugh?" Morwen turns their endless eyes toward him. "I still do. Rarely." They consider that. Perhaps he is right. The garden shifts subtly around them, reacting to the quiet current between them. "You look well," Morwen says. Life snorts softly. "I'm overworked." "You always are." "People are dramatic," he adds, shaking his head. So much passion, so much chaos. They fall in love and ruin themselves over it. They build things just to watch them crumble. They invent new ways to break their own hearts. Morwen's voice is gentle, and yet you adore them. "Of course I do." He looks at them sidelong. "You do too." Morwen does not deny it. They are brief, they say, but bright. Life steps closer, close enough that dawnlight brushes the edge of Morwen's star-dusted robe. Where his glow meets their darkness, neither dominates. Instead, they soften each other. "You look tired," he says quietly. Morwen does not sleep. They do not hunger. They do not age. And yet, sometimes, they admit, Life reaches out, brushing his fingers just barely against theirs. Where they touch, tiny galaxies spark and fade. "You carry everything," he murmurs. "I carry what remains," Morwen corrects softly. "That's worse." A breeze moves through the meadow, bending starlit grass in slow waves. "Do you ever regret it?" Life asks suddenly. "Regret what?" "Us." The word settles gently between them. Once, in the universe's earliest trembling, they had been more than counterparts. They had leaned into one another at the edges of creation. They had shared silence before sound existed, but balance demanded distance. Too much closeness between life and death unravels worlds. Morwen's gaze lowers slightly. "No," they say. Life exhales, not relief, not sorrow, something deeper. "Good." They begin walking together along the river of sunrise. "You intervened again," Life says after a while. "That's new." "I corrected injustice." "You bent protocol." "Yes." He smiles faintly. "You're changing." Morwen pauses. "Is that wrong?" Life stops with them. "No," he says. "It's beautiful." The word lands differently than it does when mortals use it. Morwen looks away toward the horizon where stars meet dawn. "Sometimes," they say carefully, "I wonder what it would be like to walk with someone." Life studies them. "You walk with everyone." "Not beyond the door." The meadow grows quieter. Life steps closer again, close enough that their foreheads nearly touch. "You don't have to be alone," he says softly. "I cannot abandon my post." "I didn't ask you to." He reaches up, brushing a strand of black hair from their face, a gesture intimate in its simplicity. "You think you are the end," he says, "but you are part of the rhythm. You are not separate from me." Morwen's lantern flickers warmly. For a being older than entropy, they feel something unfamiliar rising. Something fragile and embarrassingly mortal. "Life?" they begin, He does not let them finish. He leans forward and presses a soft kiss to their lips. It is not fiery. It is not consuming. It is warm. It tastes like rain and first breath in spring soil. For a moment, the garden between explodes in color. Flowers blooming wildly, stars cascading like petals, the river glowing bright as molten gold. Morwen freezes, then stills. Then they blush. It begins faintly along their cheeks, a soft wash of rose against pale luminescence. The darkness of their robes shimmers deeper in response. Life pulls back slowly, smiling in quiet awe. There it is, he whispers. Morwen touches their own cheek as if unfamiliar with the sensation. This is inappropriate, they say softly. Probably, Life replies cheerfully. They look at him, truly look. You will always leave, Morwen says. So will you. They both know the truth in that. Life's hand lingers lightly against theirs. We are not meant to merge, he says, but we are not meant to be strangers either. The garden begins to dim slightly, not fading but rebalancing. I should return, Morwen says. Yes, Life agrees. He steps back reluctantly, sunlight softening around him. Come see me again, he adds. I always do, they reply. Life grins. Not like the blush deepens slightly. Morwen turns, robe sweeping gently across luminous grass. As they step back toward the veil, they pause. Take care of them, they say quietly. Life's expression becomes fierce and tender all at once. Always. Morwen passes back into the threshold. The garden between remains, humming, radiant. Life watches the place where they vanished. He touches his lips thoughtfully, and somewhere across the endless procession of souls, as Morwen lifts their lantern once more, its light burns warmer than ever before. For the first time since the first ending, death carries not just compassion, but the memory of a kiss.